Hey guys, JP here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with the next lesson in the Introduction to Sales and Communications course. And this lesson's all about phone sales. So, going off of the last two lessons, we're understanding the different forms of communications. So, in phone sales, what we have to understand is the limitations of how we can communicate, but also understanding the strengths we have in communicating over the phone. So over the phone, we rely heavily on our tonality and the language patterns that we use to communicate the right meaning to a potential buyer. Because that buyer can't see us, there are artificial barriers that we have to overcome in terms of, relatability and building relationships with them. So an important thing to understand is that we don't want to be mellow tone. We don't want to be talking like this in a mellow tone when we're on the phone, like, hi, this is Justin from Alpha Wolf Consulting. We're a marketing firm that help, you know, customers like you, blah, blah, blah. So what we want to do is we want to use our tonality to add vibrance so that the person on the other end of the phone feels like this isn't a robot talking to me. This is someone who is vibrant, who is sharp as a tack, enthusiastic, and an expert in their field. So when we're doing that, but we also need to understand that in phone sales, we have much shorter durations in terms of time to capture attention than we do in face-to-face sales. So it's very, very important that we understand this and that we're able to utilize our tonalities to convey the messages that we need, okay? To be able to convey, when we want to sound like we care, we can convey that we care. When we want to sound exuberant about what we're talking about, we can add that life into our conversation. So that's an important thing to understand, is that through phone sales, we are relying heavily on our language and our ability to communicate through sound. Okay, so an important thing to understand is that in phone sales, this is a lot more low pressure or low stress than door-to-door sales, than face-to-face sales, because there is no threat of danger. There is no threat of, the pressure is taken off, because all the customer ever has to do is hang up, job done. So just understand that in phone sales, we can be a lot more animated with how we talk. Okay. And it's an important aspect to, even though they can't see our body language and they can't see our tonality, if we want to get the tone, well, not that they can't see our tonality, but they can't see our facial expressions. So if we want to get an excited, exuberant state going, we use our body language to do it. So we don't sit here and say, hey there, this is Justin from blah, 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 blah. No, what we want to do is we actually want to smile, which makes us sound happier than we are. Okay, we want to use our animations of our body language to be able to create energy within ourselves that comes out in the form of our tonalities. So it's very important for this. But the important difference between face-to-face sales and phone sales is phone sales, we are able to hit much larger volumes of potential customers or engagements than we are in face-to-face sales. So phone sales it tends to be a lot more quicker of a process than face-to-face sales. In the context of, we want to be getting through more calls, okay, and I'm not saying that we want to, rush through our conversation that we want to have with a potential buyer. We don't want to rush through it, but we also don't want to overextend it, in terms of, we don't want to be a talking head on the phone that's holding people up for 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes, having a yarn about something that's illogical or irrelevant to the sale. So we want to keep it nice and concise so that we're respecting potential buyers' time. So that's an important thing. But what we're able to do is we're able to get through more quantity of calls or more conversations because we're able to, break down those barriers at a much easier rate than in face-to-face sales. In face-to-face sales, there tends to be a bit more of conversation that we have to have with the customer. Like the conversations are usually a little bit more elaborate than what they are on the phone. So typically, when we're talking about phone sales, okay, in general, we're talking about initial engagements. So typically we're not trying to sell the entire, through the entire process over the phone, but we're trying to do the outreach and prospecting over the phone. So usually our first call or the first engagement with a prospective buyer will be via the phone. And then the next engagement, which is our sales presentation, okay, will usually be via video or in person so that we're able to convey more information. Okay, so that's an important thing to understand is that, in person when we're selling, we usually will have materials that we're able to use to help people understand the product, the service, or the offer that we are selling. Whereas over the phone, we tend to only have the language that we use, you know, like the conversation is what we use to transfer the information. So we don't want to be information heavy where we're trying to educate someone about something that they have no concept on over the phone, because that's going to lead to a confusing outcome where people don't really understand what's happening. So remember this, what we're trying to do in sales is create a simple, smooth process to transfer information and educate a potential buyer to the value of the product, service, or offer that we are promoting to them. So it's very important that we keep phone sales as light as possible in terms of we don't want to be talking in detail. We want to refer any detailed meetings to in person or via video. Okay. And the reason for this is so that we are able to take the time to demonstrate and show them. So it's very, very important that we understand this distinction. Otherwise, we fall into the trap of being a talking head salesman, okay? Where we're sitting there and we're talking someone's ear off about all the technical information about a product, service, or offer when they have no visual conceptualization of that product, service, or offer. So it's very important that we remember this, that phone sales is about light and easy conversations where we're looking to do our qualifying calls and qualify our buyers via phone. And then we're looking to, move them into a sales presentation that's in person or via video chat. Okay, because we don't want to be doing a sales presentation over the phone, because it's very, very difficult to communicate when you cannot see the facial expressions or the body language, because someone might be wanting to say something, but because I can't see their face, I don't see the cues that they want to say something. So I might just keep talking, talking, talking. So an important rule to understand about phone sales is we don't want to be information heavy. We want to ask questions and listen for answers and gather in intelligence or information. And we want to use it as a rapport building or relationship building tool. Okay. Now, that's not to say that you can't sell products or services via the phone. It's just, if we're trying to run sales presentations via the phone, it's quite difficult because, sometimes the line mightn't be clear. Sometimes they mightn't have the best reception. Sometimes, they mightn't be able to hear properly. So because we're only able to use our tonalities and our language, they may hear something wrong. They may hear something different to what we've actually said. So we don't want to be trying to front end load a phone call with heavy information. So phone sales is a good tool as a lead generation or a prospecting tool where we can reach a large portion of people and be able to generate interest, be able to find information out, be able to develop strong relationships with a potential buyer to where we then offset to a face-to-face meeting to really do our sales presentation, objection handling, and overcoming. Okay, so just understand that it's quite important that we understand what each of the types of communication are best used for. Okay, and just understanding that phone sales is low stress sales in terms of there isn't any external pressure being put on a buyer through, perceived threat, through, perceived pressure. Because at the end of the day, all they have to do is hang up on you. So don't stress about that. And what we want to do is we want to have a light, fun conversation with them. Now, I'm not saying be unprofessional. Okay. What I'm saying is we want to have a vibrant conversation with them that is light. Okay. And that builds upon the initial interest that we gathered in prospecting. And now we're using this as a tool to qualify and generate more interest for a potential buyer. All right. So understanding this just allows us to use the tools at our disposal. But when we're talking about a sales process, we don't only ever want to sell via face-to-face. We don't ever only want to sell via the phone, via email. And the reason for this is because when we're too heavy on one form of communication, we are losing out on the benefits of sort of like a combined arms sales process where we're getting the reach, okay, to potential customers that we can get via phone calls, where we can do 100, 200, 300 calls a day, depending on how long you work and how effective you are on the call and how much information you have to give on the call. Typically, it's about 100 to 200 calls a day is what I used to do in the property. And the reason for this was it was a light 5 to 10 minute call, okay, where we're trying to find out some basic information, where we're trying to build an initial relationship and then progress them on to the next meeting where we can go more in depth because we've already built that initial relationship. If we just jump on the phone and this is the first engagement that we've had with this potential buyer and there's no relationship built, and we're trying to be an information heavy and run a sales process, a sales presentation over the phone that goes for 45 to an hour, all we're going to do is piss people off and make it so that no one wants to talk to us. So remember that the different forms of communication are just different tools and ways that we can best communicate. So phone sales is always best for generating initial interest and qualifying. Face-to-face sales is always best for presenting and overcoming objections, okay, and closing. And email sales and written like text-based sales in terms of, text-based communication of email marketing or email sales, email marketing, text marketing, text sales is all about delivering information that is needed, but we want to directly, we want to deliver it in a direct and professional manner so that there is no misconstrued, meaning added to it. So we don't want to be ambiguous with our text-based marketing or sales emails where we're creating confusion. Think about it like this. A confused mind will never be able to make never be able to come to a decision. Okay. So a calm and relaxed mind, okay, will always be able to make a clear decision. So the more we can put potential buyers at ease and create a relaxed atmosphere between us, the easier the conversation flows, but also the easier it is to communicate effectively because we're not trying to overdo it. So just remember that on phone sales, we don't want to be talking for an hour or two. We want to try to keep it to 10, 15, 20 minutes at max. And we want to keep it as light as possible so that it's easy communication, so that we're not sitting there holding someone up for an hour while they're on their lunch break and they get off the phone and then they're back to work and they missed out on lunch. So that's an important thing to remember. But the other thing is that the phone sales allow us to get get to potential buyers any and everywhere. We can catch them when they're driving. We can catch them when they're at home making dinner. We can catch them, when they're at work on a break or when they're, you know, not doing much, like depending on when or how we're selling or the different types of products. For example, if we're selling chewing gum, we don't want to be bringing someone at 9 o'clock at night to talk about chewing gum. But if we're selling property, well, maybe they're busy all day and 9 o'clock at night is the only time to get to them. So it works out to be the best time to communicate to them. So that's an important thing to do. But also just remember, there's no stress in phone sales. It's low stress. Like as a salesperson, what's the worst that someone can do? Tell you to fuck off? Like, do you see? So it sort of allows us to break the ice easier through phone sales than it does through face-to-face or through email or text-based sales. So just remember that these different forms of communication are just different tools we use to communicate to people, and we're able to mitigate. For example, when we do phone sale, a phone like initial phone contact, and we build up a relationship over the phone, when we meet someone in person, we've already laid the groundwork of that relationship. So there's going to be less pressure and less stress in that meeting. Just to the same, if we're going out there and we're doing only face-to-face sales, where we're meeting people on the street or door to door, we have to break down those barriers and build that initial relationship. But there's also added pressure and stresses on it. So just understand that these are just tools that allow us to operate as salespeople to the maximum effectiveness and efficiency that we can. All right. Well, I hope you guys understand a little bit more about phone sales, and you guys have an amazing day. Thanks so much. Bye.